Hi everyone and welcome back to a brand new episode of Intuitive Psychology. I actually just looked to Sarah there and she was slowly smiling right at me. I'm like, hi. That was a lovely smile you were giving me. Well, we're back on the Intuitive Psychology podcast. We are laughing because we're kind of in that space. We had some lunch there before we started recording and we were just chatting about, you know, the importance of being in alignment and living from a place of flow, not force. And so we decided very last minute to change what we're going to talk about and change the episodes. And we'll talk about why we've decided to change that. In this episode, we're going to be talking about if you are forcing it, you're already out of alignment. Okay, so let's just dive into it because this was really present for us and why we actually decided to even change the episode that we were scheduled in to do, right? Okay.
Yeah. And I think it offers like a real contrast. Again, we were in the car coming back and we were both chatting about times in the past before when we weren't as fully connected to our intuition, and you would feel like, oh, I actually need to have a rest. I need to stop. Like now isn't the right time.
But I've said I'm going to do it, so I have to do it.
Exactly.
I can't let that person down. I have to stay in integrity. But actually, the most out of integrity thing you can do is go against your intuition, go against your gut.
It really is. And when you're out of alignment, you feel it. So, you know, I know like letting people down, do you know, that's something that I really don't like to do.
I've said I'm going to do it. We have
Said
to
I'd
do it.
I'm going to make that commitment. You shared an example of something you said no to like earlier on this week. And, but, you know, as we're talking, it brings me kind of like back to, you know, like it's like life before, kind of like quitting my job and then after. But in that before stage, I was really crippled by people pleasing and really highly empathetic to other people's needs. And again, I think this happens particularly for individuals who grow up in a family dynamic where you have to be hyper vigilant, where your parents, your caregivers don't necessarily know how to meet your needs and rely on you to be the parent in a relation, in a family dynamic. And so as a result of that, you're hyper vigilant on, you know, what does that person need? What mood are they in? What do I need to give them as opposed to what do I need to give myself? And that was definitely how my identity was configured, you know, internally was I'm the person that will preempt your need. You know, I will know that you need to go for that coffee because you've had a hard week and you really, really want to chat it through. And that is way more important than my need for rest or my need to even share my issues or my problems or things that are happening in my life. And so I would continually put other people first and of course be validated for it. You know, people would tell me, you're an amazing friend. You're such a good person. The amount that you
so
give
selfless.
to other people. Yeah.
And you're so selfless. The badge of honor of being the selfless one.
I know, the good girl. And so the identity becomes so positively reinforced in that way that we just gradually through time learn to outsource our needs and to force through. Because if we don't, then what does it say about us?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I think I know because of intuitive psychology, it has really allowed us to really trust ourselves. Even in the last few years, like when I'll go back even 2 years ago. Do you remember the time when we were doing Chris Evans Carfest for the first time?
Yes.
And I was sick before it, but we had a busy schedule. We were still really quite early in the business. Things were going well and we were getting these speaking opportunities. And that was a big one for us because there was a lot of people there, a lot of our ideal clients there, and a great opportunity to be down in that space, right?
Yeah.
Now, we also had quite a heavy workload. We were organising quite a lot and we were recording we were looking to record a new masterclass. And we changed it again. When Sarah and I get things, we get it quick, right? We're like that. We take action quickly because we're so passionate about it. And that's great when it's great, right? And not when it's not. So we had said, right, we'll need to record this new masterclass because if we go down here and there's someone who wants to train with us, they're going to want to watch this new masterclass. Now, we had a masterclass before, but when we got it in our head, like, actually, we need to change this. This feels more in alignment. And we were doing so much that week. Remember, we were having calls with Simon Hall. There was a lot. We were talking about our own podcast. Could we get, oh my God, it was busy. And we had to travel to Carfest. And I got sick, which it can happen to me when I'm leveling up and doing something, right? And I said to Sarah, I'm not feeling well. Do you remember this?
I remember.
Bad.
I remember.
But because and I'm the same, because I had said I was going to do it. But for me to say I'm sick is a big thing. Like if I've got a cold, I can usually get through, right? But if I know I can't do something, it's a lot for me to say, I don't know if I can do this. But you were like, and this isn't a bad thing about Sarah, I don't remember when I was saying this.
No, I was like, you can. You can do it.
Well, we have to do it because we've said we're going to do it. And if someone wants to watch the masterclass, then we need to be able to point them to that, even though we had another one, which was okay. But we were in such a rush.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was the key there. We were like, we're in such a rush to get this done. We need to get it out there. It needs to be there or else we have no business. It was like this BS story, right? So what happened was we sat down and I think we had 3 attempts at it and I couldn't even get my words out. I was like, I am a 0 right now. Like I wasn't even scraping a 1. And then eventually I think we're like, let's just sack this off.
I know.
But it took that for us to try and push that. That's never happened again though.
No, never.
That has never happened again.
Never happened again. And again, like sometimes it is like the old kind of part like kicks in where it's like, especially I think when you're so close to something, the temptation is like
push through,
just push through, another 20, 30 minutes and then we're done and then it's all complete. And I am a starter finisher. Mm-hmm. So I like when I start something, I get like huge satisfaction when it's over the line. And like, I love that feeling. And that's a real signature strength. But also when I'm out of alignment, it becomes like a really toxic trait for me that I've got to keep in balance because I will push myself to the nth degree. I will go beyond my threshold of comfort. And it's like all things, your signature strengths, when they're in harmony and in alignment, they are like your greatest, like they're your greatest attributes,
they are.
But when you start to over rely on them, then that's whenever you're out of alignment and out of integrity. And again, it's through working like specifically with intuitive psychology has been the initiation and the signature change in myself to know, because I think often, and let me, like, as you're listening to this, like perhaps it resonates. I think often we can hear people talk like this. But if you're quite head-led, as I kind of was in the past, not very kind of connected to my body before, like very structured in terms of like, well, I know if I can get this finished, then it's going to have like a really good outcome and maybe I'll push myself through. Like I would miss the intuitive signals as to when it wasn't in alignment and I would really like override them, not consciously. And it's been through working with intuitive psychology specifically that has really created the most rapid change. And it's a change then as we've distilled that down into an evidence, informed methodology. Like you see it then with other people, especially high performers, very head-led, who are like, very structured, very performance-driven, very outcome-related, that all of a sudden things start to change. And actually, it's ironic because you start to achieve more when you operate from this place.
Yes, when you do less. And I'm not saying like for people in business, and the ones that are doing, they will absolutely get this. But I know that there's some people that think, I just need to keep going. I just need to keep going. I just need to keep going. And there are times when you can push, but when nothing's coming in, when you're channeling nothing and there's nothing in the tank and you can't get in that creative space, because there's a time for processes and there's a time for creation. And when you want to talk about something that's inspiring, that you're passionate about, or you want to create some content or whatever that is, that creative switch has to be switched on. You need to be dialed in to source, to energy, whatever, that is, you need to be dialed into that. And if you're not, there is no point forcing it, because you just come out with the biggest load of rubbish. Like,
Totally.
and actually you say things that you don't even mean. Sometimes it can be a copy and paste job, right? Oh, well, what's someone else saying that sounds really good, right? I'll try and say that, but I'll say it in a little bit of a different way. Please, please don't do that. That is a felt sense. People feel that. And that, when I gave that example of like a couple of years ago, very early in the business, that has never, ever happened again. I think that was a real learn for both of us, because we actually wasted probably 2.5 to 3 hours
Easy.
trying to record that. And it was absolutely crap. And we were like, and do you know, the funny thing is, the whole time, like I knew it, but I learned to speak more from that, because I thought, I'm going to let her down. She's going to be pissed off if I fucking do this. And actually, I should have just said, and when I do it now, I'm like, Sarah, I'm a 3. I can't do that today. And you'll say the same to me. So we really learned to like that love language of each other, of really understanding each other and supporting one another and respecting the other one for where they're at. Because, you know, especially when you are in business, if you're in a partnership, it's a co-creation. Both parties need to bring it. And even for you, if you're an individual in a business, it's understanding, it's that check-in with your intuition and asking the simple question, is this the day for this? Now, I'm telling you what, your business is not going to crumble if you take a day off. If you go, actually, no, let go of that BS narrative of, if I don't do anything, it means I'm lazy. It means I'm not as good as this other person. I'm not serious about my business. All of those lies that you're maybe telling yourself, or these stories, actually the best things that we've ever done. And we've done this multiple times, because what we do, we're very passionate about. But we also have real respect for intuitive psychology as its own entity, as we have shared a number of times. We often know now when we're checking in, if nothing's coming, it's because it's not supposed to come today. We have learned to say, right, actually, even though we have plans, even though we said we were going to do this, we need to rest. And every single time we do it and we let go of the pressure of the story, it is easier. It's a simple check-in of the body. Is this a yes or a no? Is this a red light or a green light? Do I push? Do I go? Do I stop? Do I slow down? When we slow down, the downloads that we get, and it creates so much safety, not only as individuals, Sarah, but as a team.
Definitely.
As a team, and we give people in the team permission to do that. We see beyond the immediate need to put something out there that is actually not adding any value.
And it does, it really changes everything. You know, we had a conversation with someone, like a former student, now graduate, and she was saying to us, like, oh my goodness, like, yous are busy all of the time. Like, you're always doing stuff. And we were like, we're not busy per se, but we are hyper productive. And I think it's because we create from a place of flow. So, you know, I've written a book on flow. It's one of the subjects in psychology that I specialize on. And when we're in flow state, we're 500% more productive. You know, it's a really hyper focused, productive state where you don't burn out and it gives you energy. And I've seen us complete, you know, when we have that creative inspiration that normally comes as a result of rest, being in nature, taking time, taking space, we have created things that honestly would have taken weeks, if not months, for other people to do. And you see that across artists, industries, you know, let me give you some examples to bring this to light. But I think Scream, the movie, he wrote the whole movie in like a couple of days. Do you know John Lennon got like a a download for a song for yesterday? For yesterday, he woke up literally like with the line and with the whole tune in his head within a matter of seconds. And all of this has been related back to flow state, where people have written books, full books, in literally like 2 days. And like that defies timelines, but that happens and it is possible, but only if you cultivate space. When you step out of the narrative of like, it has to be this way, like I've got to follow a linear timeline, I've got to be switched on all the time, I've got to be doing stuff, that's when you're operating from that conditioned creator. You know, you're operating from your conditioning. This is how it works. I work hard and then I get the reward, cause and effect, you know, linear timelines. But actually, when you switch and you operate from that place of like consciously creating,
how do I feel today?
Working with your energy, working with like cultivating that space, that's whenever you defy timelines, and it isn't cause and effect. It's not that relationship. It's like these crazy, beautiful, creative downloads that are amazing
to come in,
but they need
they
space.
have the space to come in. And the only way I believe you get there is by working with intuition and harnessing so much of a connection to your own intuition that has that flow to come in. So as soon as you feel off, it's like, how do I check in and understand? Now, when I said earlier, it's sometimes like you don't need to do anything. Now, that is not the permission slip just to do nothing in your business. Of course, it's about knowing the difference between maybe self-sabotage or ego versus space, trust, intuition, alignment. Let's talk about even something simple that a listener could do to understand, like, what's the difference? Is this my self-sabotage trying to like distract me versus this is actually me not needing to be in a story about it, but just knowing this is not the time. So a couple of things maybe, Sarah.
So I think the story is key for that. So first of all, and something I would encourage like the listeners to do is like identify your loop, like your standard self-sabotage identity loop. We have a previous episode on this where we talk about 3 stabilizers that we have identified through our work at intuitive psychology: emotional, behavioral, narrative. Emotional, what do I need to feel to come back to a familiar baseline? Behavioral, like what I do to regain control, and narrative, what do I say to justify the return. That's a really good episode to listen on, but that will help you identify the loop. So in other words, when I'm at the edge of a threshold, so let's use the Chris Evans example, right? So that is on the edge of an identity threshold. So it can be confusing. It's like, we're about to go on this large platform, this large stage. We want that to have a direct impact on our business. We need potentially the masterclass to do that, question mark if that was truth or not, right? So we could, in theory, go, is self-sabotage kind of active there, and how would I normally respond? But that's not your normal loop, right?
No.
That isn't Jill's loop. When Jill's at the edge, she's normally the one grabbing my hand and throwing me off with her, right? Like, I know that that's not her loop. My loop, however, is to go, we need to plan and we need to prepare and we need to kind of like do that.
We need somewhere to send the audience.
Yeah. So like that is, so like when you are able to identify your loop, this is what I would normally do at my edge. This is what self-sabotage looks for me. Then you're able to quickly label it like, oh, I know this feels familiar. This is normally what I do, versus this doesn't feel familiar. This feels different. This feels like, you know, when you close down your eyes and put your hand over your heart, it's like, you know, what is it that I need?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, it's space, it's rest, it's just integration, and it's not to do more. And your intuition will tell you the answer. But first of all, everything starts with self-awareness. You've got to become aware of your own patterns.
Absolutely.
You've got to become aware of your own internal world and the signals that it sends you, because we are a world within a world. Like, the world that I inhabit internally is a different mechanism from Jill's.
Yeah.
It's got different feelings, different sensations, different activation points. And this is why intuitive psychology is so beautiful, because it recognizes the unique internal map that each of us have kind of like have got within us. And it gives us the guidance system to navigate that path. But we have to learn to trust the signal. I can't tell you like it's a one and done. Like, if you feel X, Y, it's different for each of us. So first of all, start to observe your internal world. Start to notice, like, am I pushing? Am I forcing? Is it from a place of like, I'm frightened that if I don't do this, that I'll lose an opportunity in the business? And then, is that true? So to my point was, we need the masterclass. I was the one that needed a challenge in that scenario to go, like, is that true? Actually, it's not true, because the masterclass was good enough, like, as is.
We didn't even, can I just tell you, when we went back to do it the following week, we changed it completely. We didn't even use that one. Because it came from panic.
Exactly.
It came from panic. So oh my God. So it ends up, And so actually we are always being guided. It was a flat when you asked about that, this is a great thing, right? When you drop in and you ask the simple question, closing down the eyes, as always, is what we do in intuitive psychology. We breathe, we place our hands on our heart. What do I need? I did it that day, and the word was rest.
Yeah.
But I still pushed. Now, okay, and that's just being a human, and we learn from it. It's never happened again.
Yeah.
Subsequently, it's never happened again. But my pleaser of, oh, she's going to be, and that's my loop is, if I don't do this, she's going to be angry at me. That's my loop.
Yeah.
So I was still playing out that. Now, if it had just been me in the business, I would have just stopped. But because I have this other person who is this co-founder, who it's like, oh God, I got to do this because I said I was going to, and she's going to be annoyed if I don't. And then what if she's right and we have no one to, and we catastrophize it. But the reality is, my body knew I was tapped into my intuition. I knew I was supposed to rest, but I went against it.
Yeah.
And guess what? It didn't work, and it never does, guys. And so what we're trying to support you with is by saying that taking the space is the greatest gift that you can give yourself, because you are then not forcing something, and then that's a felt sense by your audience. You can feel resentment in your business. You stop enjoying it. It's not fun. And actually, by taking the space, there's a great line: slowing down to speed up. And it sounds crazy, right? Slow down to speed up, but oh my God, it's so true, because when we slow down, what's aligned is allowed to come through, and it's allowed to be channeled, and it's just easier. Even when we sit and we're like, do you know what? We're not going to do it. How many times do we do that now, Sarah? We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
All the time. And every time the reward is so much greater.
It really is. I mean, we work with intuitive psychology. Intuitive psychology is obviously our business, but it's also the philosophy by which we really live our lives. We're so deeply connected to our intuition. A lot of most great businesses are built off intuition and like the inner knowing as to when to move and when to force and when to stop. But when you're forcing, you are out of alignment. And I've heard you say this on the podcast before, and we are nature, we move with nature. And it's the same when we think about a river kind of flowing, that flow, that natural rhythm, it can move around kind of obstacles. It's moving naturally kind of like towards the end destination. But if we try to push that water like uphill, like it doesn't work. You're going against the grain. So like, how do you feel, and how do you step out of that habitual pattern and loop that is causing you to force and go against like your natural state and what you need?
And again, to say this point earlier about when you're in flow, you're 500% more productive. Like, we have literally done weeks worth of work in a day.
Yeah.
And we've actually felt incredible from it. And that's why we were able to take pretty much the full of December off. That's why we're able to take the space and time that we do now. If we had always forced like we used to in our corporate jobs, and how we've been conditioned to believe that you should do life in business, and not only does it make you sick, it just it's not sustainable in any area of your life. And I think it doesn't need to be like that. When Sarah was talking about with nature, we are nature. And there is, the trees are not in full bloom 365 days a year, and that's why a lot of people, especially in the more spiritual kind of realm, don't really come to sort of life, I guess, again, until sort of springtime.
Yeah.
And again, in Chinese New Year, it's the year of the horse. I don't think it's like till the 17th of February.
That's right.
So really, we're not saying don't do anything till the 17th of February. I mean, gosh, like last week we were massively in flow. It's just trusting what you need in each day, and not making up stories or labeling it as like, oh my God, what's going on? It's not anything. When you can drop in and really tune into your body, well, when you ask your heart the question, what do I need right now, and go with that, really, really trust that the reward is incredible. And, back to like living in your sort of nature, we were talking at lunch today, and we were saying like, we should maybe get someone on the podcast for the females about living around your cycle, because there's different I mean, that I'm definitely no expert in that, right? But I
Same.
also know at different times of the month I have more energy. And I think even as, we're in our 40s, Sarah, and I think again, there's a lot of changes that happen in our bodies. And I think it would be maybe good. Maybe we do that. We bring someone in to be able
I
to
think,
talk about that,
yeah,
especially as women in business.
I think it would be really interesting. Again, it's just working, like, it's working with our nature, and it's releasing the need for anything to be constant. Like, I think we cling to the
I
constant,
know. Like
like
it's
a
going to run
constant need
out.
to be good, a constant need to be switched on, a constant need to kind of like, and then when we just release it and we accept that life has like ebbs and flows. There's days when you're like totally switched on. There's days when it's like not working
Duality.
for you. It's totally the duality of life. And, again, it's a big bit of like what we teach and train, shadow alchemy method. Like there's light and there's dark, there
Hmm.
are different seasons, different eras. And how do we release the expectation and the pressure, and how do we bring more intentionality and awareness to like,
Yeah.
where am I forcing something that's moving me out of alignment? So where am I saying yes when actually it should be a hard no? Where am I self-abandoning
Hmm.
myself and putting other people's needs like before my own? In that example, you abandoned yourself to prioritize me in case like I would kind of be
Hmm.
annoyed. Do you know my example? I continually prioritize other people for fear that they would be annoyed or thinking, but they need that and I should be
I said I
good.
was going to do it. And I think, Sarah, to your point, and anyone listening right now, if you have something that you've maybe said you want to do, right? What's going to be the outcome of saying no? If you're feeling in your body right now, if you're listening to this, I said I would do this thing. I really don't feel so good. My energy is really low. I know it felt good at the time when I said it. I'm not feeling my best. What would be the consequence of you saying or cancelling, like saying no, or actually making that call and saying, listen, I know I said I was going to do this, or I said I was going to meet you. I'm not feeling my best. Can we please reschedule? I want you to just tune into how that feels in your body. It may feel difficult, may feel challenging, but also may feel like that would be amazing if I didn't
Mhm.
have to worry about that person. I want to just say, if you position it with love and honesty, however that person receives that is not up to you. It's not your responsibility as long as you approach it with love and honesty, in my opinion. And
I
the right
agree.
people will respect that and say, rather than, because sometimes you'll be like, oh, this thing happened and we'll make up this big elaborate
Yeah,
lie,
big,
right?
big,
The
elaborate.
big
Yeah.
lie.
Oh, I can't go because this person's fallen down the stairs and I need to do like some
I know.
crazy
I know,
story.
rather than just be honest, I love you, but I don't feel this today. Can we
Yeah,
please take a rain check? Oh, I mean, really, is it going to be the end of the world? And is it going to actually make you feel so good
totally.
not to assume responsibility for how they receive that?
Totally. Now, like how I communicate is entirely different. Like I will say no to things, but it's always from like a really loving kind of place. And,
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, most people are like, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it, and there's no issue. But there are times whenever someone will say, like, that's really disappointed me or I feel really let down. But I have the capacity to hold that discomfort and
Hmm.
to own it. And I'm okay with taking responsibility for things that I get wrong
Hmm.
because I'm a human and it's part of it. I think we can just hold ourselves to impossible standards, and it's those impossible standards that cause us to force.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, I hope this was a helpful conversation for others to tune into. I know even just talking it through, I think just giving ourselves that permission, and actually, even by doing it, what comes out the other end of it and how productive you then are. And also the expansion of safety in the body to allow
Mhm.
yourself to do that, to have that courageous conversation, to say no, to cancel plans. I mean, if you're doing it all the time, okay, maybe something else, that's maybe another episode, but we're talking about honoring your needs and how you feel in any moment. The growth and the expansion and safety that comes from that, from the self, is really beautiful. And we would just encourage you to really check in with yourself,
Yeah.
and maybe if there's something that you need to maybe reschedule or cancel right now, even if it's plans that you were going to maybe do some content creation or you were going to go to a meeting. Actually, is that going to be the best use of your energy and your time and space? So yeah, beautiful conversation, powerful. I think it needed to be said, especially for us, to the listeners. You know, we are in a business that is growing and expanding and evolving, and you know, can require demands, but nothing should ever take away our authenticity and
Yeah.
our own integrity of ourself. Because without our business, without your business, you, the listener, it doesn't survive or thrive if you are not showing up as your best self, as your authentic self, and everything that we talk about and everything that we train in and everything that we stand for within intuitive psychology is pointing to your authenticity. Is this thing that you are doing or you're about to do taking you further away from your authenticity or towards your authenticity? If it's further away, you need to check in.
Love that. Thank you so much for listening. As always, if you have enjoyed the podcast, please take a moment to rate, like, leave a
Share.
nice comment or share it with someone who you really feel would enjoy these like-minded conversations with
Thank
us.
you, everyone.